At the very moment this video is being made, the world's economic jugular is officially being choked off. Military actions have turned the Strait of Hormuz into a dead zone, leaving 21% of global oil stuck in limbo. Amidst the chaos, the UAE is holding an ace. Years ago, they quietly poured $4.2 billion into a high-stakes backup plan, a massive engineering fire escape designed for this exact moment. With oil prices going haywire after every explosion at the choke point, that multi-billion-dollar gamble is their only hope left. But is this ironclad backup actually enough to save them, or was it already too late before they even started? To understand why the UAE took such a massive risk, you have to look at the map. It's a cruel geopolitical irony. Despite having a coast that opens to the world, the UAE's entire economic lifeblood remains hostage to a single, narrow bottleneck. The real issue isn't just the water, it's the terrain. Iran controls the northern coastline, where rugged mountains provide the perfect elevated vantage point for missile batteries. This creates a massive power imbalance. While UAE tankers must move slowly through predictable sea lanes, the high ground allows for hidden launchers to remain locked and loaded, completely out of sight. In this environment, a single order to fire could vaporize a multi-million-dollar vessel in seconds. The UAE realized they were playing a game where the opponent held every strategic card. That is exactly why they made a historic call: stop betting their future on the water and start sinking billions into the desert sands. To escape that geographic trap, the UAE executed a brutal engineering miracle. A 48-inch steel snake stretching 220 miles through the most hostile environments on Earth. This is the Abu Dhabi crude oil pipeline, better known as ADCOP, a $4.2 billion system that began operations in June 2012, connecting the Habshan oil fields directly to the port of Fujairah. The construction was a war against nature itself. Engineers had to battle corrosive saline soil that eats through metal, shifting sand dunes that threaten to bury infrastructure, and punishing desert heat that pushes machinery to the breaking point. The pipeline doesn't just sit in the sand, it climbs through rugged mountain terrain, putting immense stress on the 13 critical valve stations that regulate the flow. At the finish line in Fujairah, the UAE built a massive strategic fortress, a field of floating roof storage tanks holding 70 million barrels of oil. But the real engineering feat lies further out, an offshore section snaking beneath the Gulf of Oman. Laying that pipe on the seabed meant fighting powerful currents, shifting sediment, and the constant threat of material fatigue. Make no mistake, this wasn't built for profit.
It was a multi-billion-dollar war insurance policy bought for the exact day the Hormuz noose would finally tighten. And in March 2026, that nightmare hit. Following a wave of Iranian missile strikes, the strait was slammed shut. This was ADCOP's moment to shine. With a design capacity of 1.5 million barrels per day and a maximum throughput of 1.8 million, the system was pushed to its absolute limit. So, did this $4.2 billion actually save the UAE? The answer is pretty surprising. Despite the hype, ADCOP was just a temporary bandage. The moment the shooting started, a wall of costs went up. Insurance premiums skyrocketed so fast that ship owners preferred to stay anchored rather than risk the trip. Even worse, the math didn't add up. At its peak, this pipeline only handles 50% of the UAE's total exports, leaving half of their revenue trapped inland with no way out. But here's the part where the insurance policy turns into a catastrophe. The Fujairah terminal, once a safe haven, became a missile magnet. In March alone, those massive floating roof tanks were hit by 3 major Iranian drone swarms. At this range, suicide drones need only 7 minutes to turn these strategic docks into burning scrap metal. And the final blow? The UAE's second biggest moneymaker, Ling, was left completely exposed. While oil has a detour, Ling has no pipe, no backup, and no escape. It is still forced to sail straight into the lion's den, completely defenseless. But what if I told you a railway project ended up being the hero? Believe it or not, a railway system ended up being the silent hero that helped the UAE keep its head above water during this suffocating crisis. While oil pipelines were pushed to the breaking point, were engulfed in chaos, a piece of infrastructure everyone used to overlook suddenly stepped up as the country's new backbone, Etihad Rail. To be honest, nobody poured money into this track thinking it would become a wartime supply chain. Originally, Etihad Rail was just a modernization project meant to get trucks off the highway and link the Emirates together. Think of it as a backup highway, built to ease traffic, not carry everything. But when every other route is cut off, that backup suddenly becomes the only way left. During those volatile days in early March, with seaports paralyzed and overwhelmed, Etihad Rail acted as a critical pressure relief valve. Thousands of containers and massive amounts of cargo were hauled across the desert, completely bypassing the naval blockades. The tracks connecting to the Al Gail dry port near Fujairah became practically priceless. Does a train replace millions of barrels of stuck oil? No, but it kept the UAE's massive operational engine from suffering a complete system shutdown. In a war where everything can be blown up, keeping the flow of goods moving is the only thing standing between a country and absolute lockdown. Sometimes, the real game-changing lifeline isn't a flashy mega-project. It's just a network of iron tracks quietly cutting through the burning sand. The UAE is now facing a brutal strategic choice: keep upgrading a risky, flawed system, or spend tens of billions to completely change the game. The most realistic move is to double down on the pipeline. By building a second massive line parallel to ADCOP, the UAE could take the country off life support and give the economy a better chance of surviving a long-term blockade. It's an expensive fix, but at least it keeps them in the game. But the UAE's long-term vision goes much further than that. They are not just looking for a detour. They are trying to build a layered energy shield. First, there's the super pipeline idea, cutting through Oman to move oil straight to the Indian Ocean, far beyond the reach of attacks near Hormuz. At the same time, Etihad Rail is being expanded into a regional logistics backbone tied into Saudi Arabia, turning Gulf trade into something less dependent on vulnerable sea lanes. And then there's the most radical idea of all: a canal project that would bypass the choke point entirely. Imagine a massive trench carved through desert and mountain, creating a new route that could weaken the Strait of Hormuz's grip on the region for good. It sounds like science fiction, but versions of that idea have been seriously discussed for years. One of the most well-known examples is the Musandam Canal project, which takes that same high-stakes logic to the extreme. While Saudi Arabia has its own outlet to the Red Sea, countries like Kuwait and Qatar have zero plan B. They're completely trapped behind the locked gates of the strait. Having ADCOP ready to go is the strategic ace up the UAE's sleeve, allowing them to keep a seat at the global energy table even while the storm rages on. However, the brutal reality of war has shown that even the most forward-thinking plans can be outpaced. This whole situation is a massive reality check on the staggering price a nation has to pay just to buy a fighting chance when geography turns against it. So, what do you think the UAE's next move should be? Should they go all in on digging a canal through the mountains, or double down on a super pipeline straight to Oman? Thanks for watching.